I see what's not working. Like, I see how the world could be if we change some things. And this pandemic, this moment in time, gave us a pause in our habits to make them conscious, to go, man, why do we do it this way? Mm-hmm. Why is it functioning this way? Should it function this way?
One of the things that we still struggle to really define is the root of injustice. Because in order for us to solve problems and address these problems, we need to find ways to obviously define them more accurately. So for you, John, the question that I have for you is, what do you believe are the roots of injustice and inequity in our society? What are some of the things that, just from your work that you have seen, are the common denominators that you're seeing? And through your innovations that you've built so brilliantly, how are you, in many ways, trying to find ways to attack these injustices, excuse me, at the root?
Yeah, easy one, huh? All right. So, first of all, I want to find out, because this has always been very helpful for me. So is this visible?
For me now, yes, it is.
All right. Well, it's visible enough. All right. Look, if you can't see it, picture 4 circles, concentric, like from the middle, right? So that middle circle is, let's start with needs, concrete material needs, right? So someone needs some food. Someone needs clean clothes. Someone needs a ride, right? Someone needs some housing. There's some basic concrete needs. And when we think about poverty, we generally think about material poverty and these concrete needs. So what I would say is, underlying every need that you see, there's an underlying issue. So that just says issue on the next circle. So there's issues. So issues like a lack of access or a lack of ownership, right? And this is actually what I think Well-Built Bikes is actually built to address. Like, the Well has been addressing concrete needs. You need a shower, you need some groceries, you need a shirt, you know? But then, like, what's the deeper issue, right? And what we found is, accidentally even, is like when someone had a bicycle, they could pedal their ass and meet a lot of their own more basic needs. Like, you could go over there and get some groceries. You could go over there and get, meat. You could show up at a laundry project. You could get to meet a lot of your own more basic needs if we address the deeper issue of access. Mm-hmm. So access was a deeper issue. But if you look deeper than the issue, you're going to find that there are systems in place, right? So systems, it's what you'd expect, but systems are, I think the most obvious thing, like, that we're familiar with is in India, actually, is the caste system, right? You actually have a stratified society based on a caste system. But this is true of, like, our laws, like right now even, like, oh, I think tonight it's going to be a law that you wear a mask when you go outside. Yeah. There's a law that you're not allowed to be outside at 11 p.m. tonight, right? Those are systematic decisions that affect everyone, and they affect us differently based on our issues and our circumstances or whatever. But behind every system, and I don't know the right word to use here, traditionally I've used the word like ideology, but underlying the systems, there's something like ideology, or I think a better word might be metaphysics, or, I think you actually said, Tammy, when you said, like, we're trying to tell a different story.
Yeah.
Like, it's the story, right? It's the bedrock. Like, what is, and ideological is not a bad word, but it's the cosmology. It's like what you believe deepest, right? Is underlying those systems. So I think a good way to illustrate that historically, especially in the United States of America, is historically we held an ideology of white male supremacy. And the country was founded on this ideology. And so then we built systems. And so today you can look at any system that exists. Look at the prison system, the education system. Name a system and look at it and ask yourself, like, do you see the effects, or do you see the fingerprint of that ideology? And the reality is you do, right? And that manifests itself in issues in families in our communities, which manifests itself in very concrete needs in a black boy on our block, right? Like, those are real. Now, this exists at every level. So So for me, I've always thought this has been this isn't mine. This came from a book called Walking with the Poor. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's written by someone that works with World Vision. It's about development work. It's super good. But this is a really good template. And it's helpful because when we talk about things, we realize, like, are we talking about something concrete, an issue, a system? Because we often miss each other. Like, we think we're like arguing with one another, but someone's talking ideologically and someone's talking about a concrete need of a neighbor, right? And we miss one another in those things. And so this is helpful because I guess, like, here's the little etymological, like, this is just interesting to me. So radical, people will be like, oh, I want to be radical. So, you know, there's a vegetable called a radish, right? A radish is a root vegetable. And the reason it's called a radish is because radix means root. So to be radical is to get at the root of something, right? To get at the bottom of it. And so this is, like, interesting when I look at, like, Vinny's work, and I'm like, Vinny is trying to go, hey, let's talk about the systems and actually the beliefs that underlie those systems. Why is it that our system is established in a way that doesn't declare the value of the mother, right, that is at home taking care of these children, or whatever the case may be? So hopefully, I wanted to share this immediately because I think this has been a really helpful tool for me.
Love it.
And so we work with folks that are on the streets, right? Like, so I understand poverty not as a lack of stuff, but as a lack of freedom. So Jason said someone had to make a choice between groceries and laundry. Yeah. That's not a choice, right? So he's like, I recognize this isn't a choice someone should have to make, but that is not freedom, right? So freedom, in my mind, is the opposite of poverty. And so that's not a choice you should have to make. That's not even a choice, but, like, in every way that we're not free. So this would apply to addiction. It applies in every way, not just material needs, that we're not free. We are experiencing poverty and can relate to people experiencing material poverty, and friendship in that place. So, and by the way, I think that poverty, the opposite of freedom, grows out of relationships that are broken. And I think relational is the way to address those things. So, like, we meet at a laundry project, or we meet at a meal, or we meet wrenching on a bike, or at a group ride, or whatever. Like, that's why the well exists, to set tables for relationships to be built. And so, let me see if I'm even getting it. I'm hopefully trying to get at your question here. So this is how, like, when you say, oh, what are the roots of injustice? Like, well, that's a deep question. Yeah. And in some sense, it is the story that we tell and the story that we believe most. And I actually think right now so people keep throwing around the word apocalypse, right? It's the apocalypse. And we mean, like, it's the end of the world. We're experiencing the apocalypse. But for those that don't know, that's a Greek word that means to unveil, to uncover, to make known, right? So the book Revelation is, in Greek, apocalypse, right? It is to reveal. Yeah. And so it's the right word. Like, we are experiencing an apocalypse, meaning it's making known what is. And we can look right now, all of us, like, no matter how insightful you are, prophetic you are, like, you don't need a whole lot of gifting in this arena right now to go, I see what's broken. I see what's not working. Like, I see how the world could be if we change some things. And this pandemic, this moment in time, gave us a pause in our habits to make them conscious, to go, man, why do we do it this way? Mm-hmm. Why is it functioning this way? Should it function this way? And so it's a real opportunity right now to see what's going on and to see what's at the root of these things and to make some decisions about what the future could look like. And interestingly enough, as Jason and Vinny were talking, they said it was in 2011, Occupy and Tea Party. It was in, 2009. Both of those followed not long after 2008 was our last major economic collapse. Mm-hmm. And out of that grew initiatives. And to those students that are here, I'm like, yo, right now, like, wake up and look around, because right now is the opportunity. Like, it's just so rich with opportunity right now. We can reform the education system. We can reform the healthcare system. We can reform the economics. Like, everything is up for grabs right now. Yeah. It's an incredible opportunity. It's unfortunately painful, and it's gonna cost us. But like, so that's exciting to me. And I guess, like, in some sense, at the root of all of these things is our cosmology, our understanding of the world, the stories that we tell ourselves about how things work.
That's really good. Yeah.
And what's interesting is, like, when things fall apart, it's, you know, it's not the Wild West. We don't see people robbing each other and killing each other. We see people taking care of each other.
Yeah.
We see people looking out for one another for the most part, right?
Yeah.
That's super promising. And I just think, like, there's a lot of things that we can lean into in terms of just basic goodness, neighborliness. Like, these values can emerge right now and actually find kind of a place. Because before all this, I already thought the future of business has no choice but to become social, right? Like, you see companies, they're greenwashing what they're doing because already our consciousness is awakening, going, you can't just rape the village and rape the world and gain everything and we're going to just keep pouring into you. Like, that's not going to work. That's a short-term sociopathic solution. But there is a way to have a long-term relationship with a company or a brand or a thing like that. Like, and there is a way that capitalism is itself growing more conscious. And as we move forward, I thought this was inevitable anyway, but all the more now. Because of the unveiling, because we can see the deeper issues, we can see the systems, we can actually see the ideology. Even right now, it's interesting. We're hiding in our houses. We're staying away from one. And by the way, I'm not critiquing this. Like, it's the right thing to do right now. But like, I do think it has a shelf life. Like, I don't think if illness and plague never goes away, I'm like, we should go out in the street and hug each other, because a world without connection and handshakes and hugs and loving each other is not worth staying. Like, because what we're seeing is we're prioritizing staying alive, prioritizing survival. And if survival is your motivating factor, well, this is how companies function. If the bottom line, survival, profit, is all that matters, you end up sociopathic.
Yeah.
Right? If I'll do anything it takes to survive, then I'll hurt you.
Yeah.
Right? And ultimately that's what'll happen. And so right now it's correct, but I don't know how long it's correct. Right? But I guess in some sense, and so I guess to try to bring all this back together, I actually believe, because this is huge, it's ideology, it's systems, it's all these things, but like, for you individually, I'm like, it's what you believe and what you do. You don't even know what you believe, right? So you got to like take into account what it is that you do with your time. Like, look at, and I love the 12 steps idea of a searching and fearless moral inventory. Like, print out your credit card statement, print out your bank statement, take a look at them. It turns out your stomach is your God. Like, whatever that thing is, like, take a sober look at it and ask yourself, is that who you want to be, what you want to be? Because I actually believe that personal responsibility is all we actually have. Ultimately, this is be the change you want to see in the world. Like, you have to change.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that's important to you? Are you functioning just out of staying safe? Like, Jason is out in the laundromats every day, like, interacting with plenty of people that are serving the kids food in the school system right now. They're out interacting with thousands of people every day. It's like, the medical workers, they're putting their life on the line for something meaningful, something worth doing. And I'm like, that's better, actually, than worrying about staying alive, staying healthy, staying whatever. And I actually think at some fundamental level, that's an ideological position that is working in systems, and manifests itself then in very real needs in our lives. Hopefully that wasn't too all over the place and I actually addressed your question, but that was my best stab at it there.
No, I absolutely loved it. And I loved how because I actually got real geeky and it pulled up, because we did a case study, I think it was out of Stanford, the Social Innovation, where they talk about, there was a case study we did called Mastering Systems Change. And the root of systemic problems are stories and narratives.
Mhm.
And what you were talking about just reminded me of the civil rights movement, right? So there was a story being told about Black people. There was a story being
Mhm.
told. And MLK was like, we need to come together and change the story. Because until this narrative is changed, policy is not going to change, right? Society is not going to change. So it really does start out with this, lack of a better term, like microcosm of what is the stories we are telling ourselves and what are the stories we tell to others, because those stories become chains that cause some of these systemic problems to become even more robust. And what's interesting now is the stories we have told ourselves for so long, it's literally unraveling right before us.
Mhm.
What's happening. I mean, there was a time where we believed like, oh yeah, I'll always have a paycheck. Now it's like, oh snap, like here today, gone tomorrow, literally. And
Mhm.
so because these stories are unraveling to what all of you three have mentioned, it's like now this is like the opportune time to unveil a better story so that we can see our systems change. But it actually starts with, like you said, what do you believe and how do you uncover what you believe? It takes you actually unraveling those pieces one by one. And I absolutely love that. I think that's something that for all of us to really like reflect on deeply, because it is at the core of some of these issues that we see. I can go on and on, but I don't want to take too much time talking about it. I can go on and on about that. So
Well, let me say one thing real quick, because as you use MLK as an example, like he didn't just flip the narrative and like, let's talk about the value of Black people, but he talked about the soul of America.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually think this is the right language. Like
Right.
there was a way in which his work was the salvation for everyone. It was like, this isn't good for anyone involved. Right. And in that sense, I think like that's
right. Yeah.
it pivoted us away from like us against them to us. Right. And that, if you can find the narrative that is unifying, that isn't Republican versus Democrat, right versus left, but like where we are and the value of each voice, we're going to be better off that way. And we've got some opportunity right now.
We really do. I think people are hungry for it. So before I get to Jason, does anybody have I'm going to open it up to the classes.
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, it can kind of be like directed to everyone, but John, you like were talking about the sense of like inequality and that whole like realm. Do you guys think this pandemic is helping like address inequality, like from a financial and like social standpoint, and like bringing light to how flawed our system is? Or do you think it's like making matters worse, where people are just becoming more polarized in like their opinions?
Thank you, Jessica.
I mean, I don't have much of a response. I'll let others respond. I think it's unveiling it. It's making things more clear. And so here's an interesting anecdotal thing. So I the other day I put something on Facebook just saying, hey, to my friends on the streets, like, how's it going for you? What's it like out there? Because you don't have anywhere to shelter in place. Like, what's going on? And someone posted, they said, hey, London mandated by the end of the week after they did a shutdown that all of what they call rough sleepers, the homeless, would be housed in the shutdown hotels. And then a local pastor chimed in and said, isn't it interesting that a problem that they've wrestled with for 1,200 years was solved within a week once it threatened the lives of the rich? And in that sense, I mean, the one thing about an illness like this, a virus like this, is it doesn't know class. It doesn't know race. It does not discriminate. And so you had, what's his name? Boris, I don't even know his name.
Johnson.
Like Johnson is sick with this. It's like all of us are being, and so in that sense, there's a leveling going on. But like everything, for those that are materially disadvantaged, this has made things way harder in one sense. And in the other sense, I think a lot of us are going to have to look to them for guidance as we all fall into that class.